I really love to see the young people like you, because I have a niece, I have a nephew. I always try to say to them, I think most important thing is I always say the meditation. Meditation is medicine for the mind. I always say to my niece and my nephew, I have two nieces and one nephew in United States. Yeah, I am very happy to see you today. Very happy to see you. Laso tate ngake samjon da chi tambo tin chi shero asamba ani ta niba te la ani ta tring ani chiran so lo chung chung jang jang de singa chu so le yong ani ta rin bo ni ani ngala thwa le yong ani pe ga wo shong si yin ta ba ne ga din che si.
So I want to begin by saying I'm really happy to meet all of you people and young people who have come to see me from a distance today. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Tatila tambotila ta nga pepe tawa chi inde zane chiranzo sata rimbo ni tende sine nga sala pebri ene nga la yinba ka ke nga ka koyo mari nambu chu te si chi shiki yori tende inde zane ene nga ranga zawa lama ene beda dharma sangha di ko la nge mulam jindo nga yinsi te mulam de nandun de ene roa simchi tamchi devata densho, donhata trarisho. And simchi tamchi sang maji kaparda, simchi tamchi donharkan tale maze kaparda, ne simchi ke don chikin sea, or tendechi molam is the man dongis.
So since you've come, from a long distance away, to see me, I'm a simple Tibetan monk, and so what I know about is the teachings of Buddha. So for this purpose of meeting you and explaining a few things to you, I'm going to first of all say a prayer to the Buddha's teachings and the community of Buddhist followers, what we call the three jewels, and to my teachers. And the meaning of the prayer I'm going to say is praying for the happiness of all living beings and for all living beings to be free of suffering. And until they attain that perfect happiness, free of suffering, that is a full awakening or enlightenment, I promise that I will continue to work for that purpose and act for that purpose. So that's the meaning of the prayer that I'm going to say.
Sanje judam zojin chonam la sanje barda dane japsun je dage jin so jibe chonam je dola pinsir sanje drabari Sanje jidam zojin chonam la sanje barda dane japsun je dage jin so jibe chonam je Dola pinsir sanje drabari sho sanje judam zojin chonam la sanje barda dane japsun je dage jin so jibe chonam je Dola pinsir sanje drabari sho simjin tamche dewa dan deve judam dimbara jurje simjin tamche donghara dan donghara je judam rawara jurje Simjin tamche donghara mebe dewa damba dam mandrawa jurje simjin tamche nireng chodang nidang rava danyang tsimi bala neba jurje Jipsi nangwa neba dang rowa jipsi ne jurde tepsi da ne junen rowa donghara sewa sho saso njwa jimbo dang nangwa yindo tobaraya 심지 뻗음이 바에 나만인 죄야 올라서 다들 Tendechi ta nga chunguji la ta chiranju tren tela public tunda da de tambo chiranju karichini tela pebi ani nga la tawanda chi yue kariko ni nga chuke chi kori te tendechi sona.
Okay, so for the purpose of your coming here today, I'm curious as to what questions you might have for me so that we can really address what you're thinking about. And so would any of you like to ask me any questions?
Who or what is Buddha?
Yeah. Tam Buddha seyate Buddha de suri kareri seyate Buddha seyate nga chu sanje chomdinde loni to ngabja khona ani jala de sin chongne jabo se jang ge se la de sin chongne ta tela nga chu sanje chade yori kapde de sanje ngaran chu na yin sosu jiwo tamal ba de ji ge thone phemne ani 산지에 지와다 가와다 나와다 치와 지가 난치가 동할 차상도 색네 아니 님종 지네 아니 첸디 참마도 류당네 아니 도르지디네 팹네 아니 로투라 아니 곰냠니세네 아니 코랑가 나노니 아주 낭바스기 요리 낭바스야데 낭니 아니 코랑가 사지니네 어떤지 소마리 될 아니 산지스기 요리
Well, Buddha was someone who was born in India as a prince about 2,500 years ago. And he came in contact with people who he saw were sick and getting old and dying. And he saw how much suffering there was in the world. So he gave up his kingdom. He gave up his life as a prince, and he went into the jungle to meditate. He went to a place called Bodh Gaya, where he meditated for 6 years, and finally, from within himself, he awakened into a full enlightenment, where he could see with love all living beings, and so he became a fully awakened being, a Buddha. Before that, he was someone just like you and me, who was an ordinary person. But then through his meditation and study, he inwardly awakened to the true nature of all things and being able to see all things and great love for all beings. So the full awakened state of a Buddha. That's what a Buddha means, someone who is awakened.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay. You have any questions?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt if you were...
It's okay.
Have there been any experiences in your life or any challenges that made you question your faith in Buddhism, and how did you resolve them, if so?
La go test ring yang hago song. Kon kyang mitse ring la na kangye da tale so tuk son ne le de dampe che de nga topa sagi ye nga depa test churu chin sha so da de jun song ye de jun yo na then sort of gandes chebares.
That's I was 12 years old. I have become the monk. 11 or maybe 12 years. I don't remember. Actually, my background, and I have many challenges. I have many problems because I born in Tibet. I born in 1965 after Chinese occupied the Tibet. I lost my mother. I was only 3 months old. That day the kanga mangbochi jurum the Tony and the pay kanga mangbochi chung chung kapsungala 아니 내당 만복 강한 튀뇽시 데 이버이나양 남부출라 태총사야당 남부추가 토라 다들 용사 말이 즉 태총사야 랑금문의 태총사야당 인그 양알을 나치 토라 슈긴 그 느지야라서 봐 근데가 그 며칠 강아 각해 쇼마송 가 남부출라 투바세 남부출라 삼바세 남부출라 곰바세 투상 곰섬 제잠 남부출라 세바 대장게 남부출라 아니 나출라 빼 맛이 대바치모 가인신의 남부추대 줌친당 릭바당 아니 망가와 락바드 등상 등두그 친릭당 그래서 망보치가 켈린데와 어떤지 차대도 자네 제장거 남부추라 섭정세 냠내세나 대장거니 대바치르치르 이치치르치르 근데 너건도 오시
So yes, I have had, from a young age, very difficult life with the Chinese occupation of Tibet, my mother being killed by soldiers when I was very young, and just tremendous suffering that was that I experienced there with the Tibetan people in Tibet. However, in my study and learning of Buddhism, I never developed doubts about it because in the practice of Buddhism, it's a practice of listening and studying, and then thinking about it deeply and meditating on it. And the reason I never developed doubts about it is because it's very logical. It makes sense. You can test it, you can check it for its validity, and the more that I studied it and meditated on it, the deeper my faith became for these reasons, because it made sense. It was logical, and I could see how it helped me in my life. So in fact, the more that I grew and learned and studied, the greater my belief in the validity of the teachings of Buddha became. So I never actually developed doubts about those teachings. And one more thing, it's really quite scientific. When we look at science these days and look at the reasoning that the science used to establish facts, it's very similar to that. It doesn't really contradict science. It's like a study in which you check logically how things work and so on.
So
I'd like to give you a brief, kind of introduction to what those teachings of Buddha are.
산지가 취되라 산지 좀 된데 코란 랑게송 야지가 취되라 아니 남부추게 신릭란드와 유지 직당 아니 남부추게 따듭을 연드와 유지 직당 아니 남부추게 냠링가 톨란드와 유지 직 대치 남바숨 베나 남부추게 신릭 베나 남부추게 신릭 디스코르데 베나가 주 체마당 아니 다치 파신 라소바 디스코니 송데야 아니 뒤당 내당 라소바 디스코 송데야 아니 디스코르디 남부추가 친르른데 와주시 남부추가 따르른데 와주지 우마당 아니 상하 디스코 아니 남부추가 따르라 하자 자치 못 와주지 아니 남부추가 냠린데 아니 주데가 토니 드리시는 냠린시야 어제 드리지 다 대치 남바숨 상태를 요대르시
Jude told me suna sanga. So when we speak about Buddhism, we can think about some different kinds of categories of its study or where it sort of fits in. On one level, it's there's a science. It's kind of like a science of Buddhism, an inner science, a science of the mind that can be studied. Secondly, there's what are called tenet systems and practice, where we look at the philosophy that's explained in Buddhism, explanations of how things exist, how everything, functions, and then studying that and studying logic and studying, what is valid, what can be proved logically, and then thirdly, there's a practice of Buddhism where people put themselves into actually doing that, those practices, meditating, and so on. And in Tibetan Buddhism, there's many types of tantric practices with meditational deities and so on, and so there's the practice of Buddhism as well. So we can kind of think of Buddhism in these different categories.
아니 가주 넘버 취데라 테라와다 세야지다 마하야나 세야지다 와자리야나 세야지 대신 숨르지 요대야리 다 테라와다 세야데 등상 롱바케 토니시나 시리랑카 바르마 타일랜드 아니 캄보디아 다든데 자라 가시지 요리 드셔그래 데라니 테라와다 하시 아니 마하야나 세야데 다 자나 자pan 아니 코리아 타이완 Malaysia, Singapore, the last soba, the Chocolani Mahayanas. Any Wajayana Siate, any Tibet, Mongolia, any the Himalaya, Richula Nedelita, any Bhutan, that the Shukor, La any Mahayanas, or the Richard, Mada Wajayanas.
We can also see different branches of Buddhism called Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And speaking about, where these different types of Buddhism are practiced in terms of the countries, Theravadan practice, which is one which primarily seeks the individual's liberation, is in countries like Thailand and Burma, Sri Lanka, and there's some practitioners of that in India as well. Now the Mahayana branch of Buddhism, which is one with the Bodhisattva ideal of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, that's practiced in China, in Japan, in Korea, Singapore, and so on, places like that. And then what's called Vajrayana, which in addition to being of the Mahayana for that same purpose, takes the resultant enlightenment into the present moment as a meaning of practicing what is called Tantra. That's practiced in places like Tibet, the other Himalayan countries like regions of Bhutan and Nepal, Mongolia. These are places where the Vajrayana practices are done.
다 노르시나 산지에게 송대 아니 리파트 딘바 юм신데 딘바 어든지 다 등상 친르바게 다 잠벨레게 출력 참 심적세인데 친르바 코랑수 로즈워르네네 코랑조 남바 말이 데데자니 남부 출력 심적세 인닥 출력 아니 심적세네 다티 줍동데라 아니 남부 추데 다 юм신다 딘바치 Jumsita dimba da maze, any may sinkham ke toni, any that chick sinkham sowala, lana me back me, Tanga Chukarishi Gorisitane, Namba sek yuri, Namba seate, can nang the dine, same juju dangoris. The Nichik Tsiklep yuri, Bena, Chulu Yimbake and Jiktin Kobapo, Dokuyurwa, Nambe, Jiktin Kobapo seate, Dokuyo Mari. 남배 추용수 줘봐 힘수 추용수 줘봐 생고 왕거 줘봐지리지 생고 너무 왕거 송아지리지 샘들 송아이나 시 추용수 줘봐 탐지 늘로 그래지 낭들 터와이나 스드라 이거 늘로 그래지야지 어떤지 산지그 송요리지
So teachings of Buddha are something that are very logical and scientific in their nature, and they're studied by people these days. Many scientists, and then there's often people of other religions and spiritual paths coming together to look at the teachings of Buddha, which are very very detailed and logical and scientific, and not only that, they're very inwardly oriented in the study of the inner person and the mind. And so one of the technical points about it that is different from other religions is that many religions accept the idea of a one creator God that has created everything and all the experiences that everyone has. That kind of idea is not accepted in Buddhism because the mind itself is seen as the principal creator of our experiences and our tendencies and so on. So in studying the mind, we find that if we can subdue our mind, if we can make our mind not act in wild ways, if we can tame it, and if we can purify it, then that will actually purify what we see on the outside. It will bring peace outwardly. So by subduing our own mind, we find that in its creative, in its role of creating our experiences, that what we experience outside ourselves also is transformed by our own mind. So these are some of the kind of scientific attitudes that are followed in Buddhism.
Teneditane sanjeke tambotila ani ngene chula tarpa lam tinje tarpa rangla rale shibarchi ta koranke lo tula kawache nyamni seyal ti tumde la korank nangni ta nyindala masang na sene tenderi indu aka ta simchi tamcheke nga rawo chik nelo te to na kande ya bo sari sabje tudar wesen de masse dirce tabi chushe kowi ni sula tinjang kowal manjore ya tende yin chone ani ti kapsak ta ti korang ke nang ni nyamyong te ani korang ke jinjok loma nambala ta nge chirang no lam tingki nga lam tungki ri ma to nga tumba lam na tin dong ki te nga mari se lam tin nge rota mandro te ani chirang chu lakpara yoris kasi nge lam tola suwa ina ani maung bala chirang chu chama nga nanghin se ne ani maung bala sanje tukuri o tende ji son.
So Buddha said to his students, that I show you the way to liberation and enlightenment, but actually taking that way is up to you. So, when Buddha went and studied and practiced for 6 years very intensively and came to his own experience of enlightenment and awakening, he wished for others to experience this nectar-like teachings and experience that he had experienced, which he described it as being like clear light, unproduced, free of fabrications, and he knew it would be difficult for others to understand, but he told them, if you practice, what I have done, you can do exactly what I have done. You can awaken, you can attain full enlightenment just as I have. But I can't actually, take you there myself. All I can do is explain it, explain to you what I've done. But if you then take that up and you practice it like what I explained, you can have the same experience that I have had.
Tagana yi sanje ke tuna dikpa chui mantrashin sanje chomdin de ke ngaran tu dikpa de chok chuwa na yin to thya yo ma thana dikpa chu me de shi robo donga de saga se to ma chiran ju donga de kong sala ke se ne me war zone zum chen da ti ba na yi se ne de yang zo ya yo ma shi thana dikpa chu me robo do ni ke to pa yin ma me bo min ba si chiran ke zun ju se le ga tang ne ma le wa che ne ngaran ke ju la ngai ju la yo ba to pa de chiran la 포야 요 말이 다 가르치 그리시듯하네 춘이 림바 띵베 조원 저시 타마텔라 내 추랑라 람띠네 추랑 그디 람라 용네 냠린세 쭌드세바 이나 마음발랑 나나지 차요시 어떤지 지송도와
So Buddha said, I can't, wash away your harmful actions that create the causes, for suffering. I can't just, alleviate your suffering, like pulling a thorn out of your flesh or just, soothing you like that. And also I can't just simply give you the kind of experience and realization that I have if you, without you putting the effort into it. So the only thing I can really do is explain to you how things exist and the true nature of things. Then, if you practice it, then you can have that same experience as I do. But otherwise, I can't really do it for you. All I can do is show you the way, show you what I have done in terms of developing myself and the actual nature of things. Then the rest is up to you.
어떤데 차대요래 드디드 자네 아니 럭버드 산지 좀 딘데게 아니 와기 진조 남베 른데세네 nga라 산지가 송리 잡선치시네 든드시네 ng지라 마용시 아니 저런 정말 딱게지시 길롱 따강 खे 남자 스게 답 세힌도 릭버타랑 nga이가 랑와사이 쿠신미시 아니 세 담보 세 제바당 세 뚜바당 Any ser yuadang, ser truadang. Any sel jinchasubanai. Sene, any ngakatila, yang tabarindoa, yang tabari mendo. Any ngas hanji risin, lundes in Mayawachine, takjichin, repigisandana, any shows on authenticity.
And then Buddha also said to people who were considering, studying his teachings or those who were deeply involved in studying and following his teachings, to not believe what he said just because he said it. He didn't want people to have sort of like blind faith, say, oh, Buddha said this, so I believe it. He wanted people to investigate, to really check it. And he gave you the example of a goldsmith checking some metal that they've been given, if it's gold, to see if it's really gold, to cut it down, to melt it down, to polish it and see how it worked. Now that's encouraging people to use their own perception and their own logic and their own reasoning to examine what he said, and then only to accept it and practice it, but not just to believe it simply because he said it, because he realized that would not help anyone. The people have to understand it for themselves.
다나진 산지게 단 냠린 실리값서 산지게 추대 냠린 시드 득바지양 메자신 배니 뭐요래 득바지양 메자신 대배 야보이 득바지양 메자신 득바세야테 르그고니 득바 나그고니 득바 이지고니 득바 르지메게와 나그메게와 심지메게와 도와 르지고니 소지 마신발리 메자와 주바 나그고니 준 참아 직접 안차 이지고니 남센는세 lok다 디 메게와 쩌데 잔이 신이가 말이지 득바지 않으사시 다 아니 간데 치거리지나 게와시 거리지 다데 메게와 쩌데 야보지 송토와 이나 메게와 쩌 마세와 이나 란히 그 코랑 게와 쩌를 차데 그 요리 나게 준 마시바세 멀 덴바시 라와 준 나게 참아 멀 참아 마세바지 맨인 tum비 탑시세 준 참아 나게 직접 마시바세 멀 칭jam보시나 다디 독소 차소 Then I would that same with Tony. Magiva Jute, and the dogs for chant to give a jolly chuck you. Then the Johnny, the what you give on some soberty. That Tama de Lund Rachabo send the Chuba in those saying, and Rachabo Nimbos in the Tegan Pink marriage. That nature should the carriage rank same Durgori, said. Same the Jones in the same. Sailors of that day, and to the Sevaina, same the John Yapochi Twaina. That take Sanji Tembang Omate. Sanji 좀 되는데 콩그 땜방 엄마한테 때리지. 어떤 데서 오유리. 너는 산지 땜방이지.
And then what Buddha said in terms of how to practice his teachings, he said, commit not the slightest harmful action and persevere in perfect virtues. Bring your own mind under control. This is my teaching. So, he said, avoid and stop doing any action that harms yourself or others. And that means in terms of your physical actions, in terms of your speech, and in terms of even your thinking. To not, and it's what a wonderful kind of thing that is, I think. To abandon actions that are harmful, that create suffering for yourself and for others. And that includes like physically, say, killing, stealing, hurting others in your sexual activities, vocally, lying, speaking divisively in ways that separate people and friends, speaking harshly to others, or wasting your speech in idle gossip, and then mentally, harboring feelings of hatred towards others and envy and greed, coveting others' possessions, or holding very strongly to obstinate kind of ignorant attitudes. He said to abandon these kinds of harmful things. And then secondly, he said, and persevere in practicing perfect virtue, positive actions that bring happiness. And when you avoid and stop doing those harmful kinds of things with your body, your speech and mind, then it naturally starts you to act in very positive ways. For instance, if you don't lie to others, that means you're always telling the truth. You're always being honest. If you don't speak divisively in ways that, this person doing that, you're telling people, then it brings about harmony. It brings about, friendship between people, positive things. If you don't speak harshly and roughly to others, then it means you're speaking kindly and gently, positive ways, and so on. So just by giving up those harmful ways of being, then it naturally, brings you into positive ways of acting and speaking and thinking, and then thirdly, then Buddha said, so finally, then subdue your own mind, bring your own mind under control, so tame your own mind, because just acting well physically and speaking nicely is not enough. If your mind is out of control, if your mind is doing all kinds of crazy things that are wishing harm for others and so on, so finally you need to really tame and subdue your own mind, and that this is really what the teachings of Buddha are about.
How many minutes we have today? How long we have?
Karma Chongaruchi.
15 more minutes.
15 more minutes?
No, only 15.
Okay. Now, that day, that the Tamatela, Narang Tijaju Chictilla. Umatenda Kashichi, you, Dinani Lang Chinambala. This Pinto, you know, some Nake. Then say you any day, somebody has seen like a margin loan. Control of Janjinaro, any control Mason and control of copy the current of what takings.
So finally, I'd like to have my translator David read in translation of some words that I've written, and I'll give you some copies of that for you to take with you. So this is what some part of something that I've written. World peace can never come from outside. First, we must be peaceful in our own mind and conduct. If everyone in the world can control their own unruly mind like yourself, the world will naturally be at peace. It is very important that there be trust between members of families and societies. With trust, love can arise. When there is love, people are harmonious. And when people are harmonious, they're happy. The latter qualities arise in dependence upon the former ones. Friends and enemies are transitory. Therefore, there is no certainty that the enemy you can't bear to see yesterday might not become your friend today. So don't immediately develop resentments and negative attitudes. In fact, that person may be there to help you in your time of need. You never know. Among many people, be careful what you say. It is not only weapons that kill, words also kill. Though words don't carry weapons, they can decimate, destroy a person's mind. We always see others' faults, but it is difficult to see our own faults. For example, although we see things that are distant from our eyes very clearly, we don't see some things that are very close, like our own face. Rather than always looking for others' faults, it is better to examine yourself. Although you see an opponent as terrible and ignoble, they may view you in a similar way. Maybe you are both mistaken. In any case, you first have to change yourself. We are temporary guests, so gathered together in the world of humankind, due karma. We think and act badly while we are living in this beautiful world, creating only negative karma. The day we die, we will be oppressed by heavy non-virtue and strong regret. At that time, it will be too late. Therefore, it is better to live now in such a way that we do not have regret at the time of death. Human life is made valuable by being kind-hearted. Anyone who lacks this, no matter their status, are said to be empty of radiance. You can't buy a good heart at the market, nor can you borrow one from someone else. It is up to you to develop a kind heart. If you're a kind person, upstanding and qualified, you need not look for friends. They will come to you. For example, if a fragrant flower has nectar, bees will naturally gather around it. No matter how much property or wealth you have, there's never a time to be arrogant about it. Better than that is contentment, the supreme of wealth. So be content, whatever happens. When you obtain wealth, position, or fame, and so forth due to sudden good luck, don't develop pride of high status. Why is that? Because it's the nature of high status to finally fall to low status. Don't forget that. Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. Always be humble. Unhappiness arises out of a very strong sense of self-importance. From now on, if we replace our self-important attitude with sincere care for others, it will lead to happiness. Don't jump around laughing when you make a profit or gain a victory, but cry and moan about it when you meet with calamity or even slight misfortune. Be like the earth, which supports whatever happens, pleasant or painful.
好了说，他既然做了这个了，你指望的这个有呢，你指望这些，那你对他那个莫那么记得，你我是这个印象。
Okay, so if any of you have any questions about what's been said here, I welcome them, and then after that I'll say a prayer to conclude our meeting.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Being so far away from Tibet and being in the middle of the downtown area, do you ever experience worries about security or feeling unwelcome in the area?
没去要不去更多是吧？
Any kang tayo na tarimbo dene samsam kirang shake duge yang dikchen di yongere samne gopa sagyure. They I'm gonna say Rinpoche they Johnson.
내 종래 ngala te che 종래다 ngala 내 당제 종래 다들 차상시에 막고 왔지 nga 남주 시에게 nga lum반들라페 뭐 야랍 뭐 상보 뭐베 시가 야보 대 요리 삼네 그 이치요 나랑 그 이치 세바 난시 양 카시라 뭐도 ngala homa te nga chin treso de la te yine nga da 시에게 뭐도 nga 시에게 뭐도
Okay, well, in general, I find the people here, to be very kind and nice, very hospitable. But in fact, I have had a little bit of problems with like criminals showing up here, but I'm not afraid. And I won't tell the whole story, Rinpoche says.
Yeah, no.
Of what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one that really stood out to me was about how words also kill. And I was wondering if you could give us some advice on how to use better words.
Zambale yashu.
Kecha shetan. De babja nala sig de tola suncha ke yomare yenian si yang mi segiores. Any tesang kecha shetan the color no.
Las. Tanga tu mambo chike zupo kamala no chikari samba chike zupo rank mase se de la kwala suncha chike toni mase ya. Tek zupo se ke yo mato ta sewa se zupo se ke yo ta dushu te se sa de kare se ke se da mat sem te se yawa ina zupo yo dewa ina ya ani sem te se la zupo se ko ma do wa sem te ke ja hie da ma de wa chen ne sik zuk ani ke ja dok ja hie ne ani pa jo de le sen lo po ne 아니 디 셈더라 베 폰은 로 나와 망보 셈네 손은 디 강아데 다 세당 두슈데 직접 세게 요리 있게 요리.
So we think about physical actions that can harm others by killing them or striking them, hurting them, but we think about it, even if the body is left unharmed, if we hurt someone's mind, through what we say, it may hurt them even more than if they died. Where for months and years afterwards they remember this harsh thing, that was said to them, and they feel terrible, feel bad about it. So that's what I want to, mean by that is to when we speak to others, try to speak very kindly and never in ways that make them feel bad, in ways that they will remember and will hurt them for months and years to come.
남자 주등아 덕보 자고사데 숨 요리시 덕보 자네 잡잡시 고사데 숨 르지고네 르르 덕보 자야당 센르 덕보 자야당 나르 덕보 자야 다데 뒤추고 토니 시와이나 내 남자데 시리요 망부이 나니 칼 덕보죠 기본도도 센르 덕보죠 남자 주드 아니 센나 곰자는 딱지시야지 아니 망부지니 나랑 그 사람들 계자 야보지 시 상고여도 뭐다 감 메바 타대바 인도자는 참사나 아니 책의 돈이 시에다 말해와 지네 아니 뭐 생각하나 맞추어시네 생을 폭통로야 근데 연구도 근데 인도자네 아니 뭐 망보기 지니 아니 칼라다 보자네 계자 마실은 뭐나 간시 죽게자 되라 아니 딱 제세네 대계자들 드렌텔 시에나 릭사 레야 릭사 말이 대 딱제신 릭사 말이나 아니 칼다 보자. 다들 그 핀 토사리 삼사리는 아니 시에네. 다 대백 개치 모래 단진시야. 르가 있음라 소수 단진시에 딱 보자야 돼.
So one of the most important things in our practice of the teachings is to always take care of our actions, take care about our actions, our physical actions, our vocal actions, and our mental actions. And so as far as where to do that, I always think about it and say this, is that when you're among a lot of people, watch what you say. Be careful what you say. While you're by yourself, then examine mainly, what you're thinking about. Check your mind, and subdue that, and control it, or take care of your mind. So that means, when you're among people, before you say something, think about what the effects of what you say are going to be. Think, is this something appropriate for me to say today? Is this something that seems like it would be okay to say? And if it is, then go ahead and say it. But if you realize that it isn't something that would be very helpful or pleasant or beneficial for others to hear, then it might be better to keep your mouth closed at that time. You should not say it.
Namju nga tsu lu nga yisum de melapin doze ke gosum se ke yuru gosum siate yan jusanda chi gosum chade yara tati lu nga yisum de melapin daze chi ke lakcha chi la peju ma son na ya nu chi se ke lakcha chi la peju sona ani pe tap chi ore tani indu tani nga chu samde yabo ji so sam kwerte me kham me ba manda wari rang nyumong ko wang 마시바 왕그 용시그리 근데인바 송자 뜻고라 딱제시네 주부 가르치근도 나가 가르치근도 이게 가르상고도 어떻게 상노다에다 개치보리티도 오시.
So we speak about our body, speech, and mind as being like three doors, three gateways with which we interact with the world. And so the intentions that we cultivate is to bring benefit, to help others through our physical actions, through our vocal actions, and through the way we think. We stay focused in that way. If we do things physically, vocally, or mentally that harm others, it's sad, because we create problems for ourselves and suffering for others. And it's quite possible that sometimes there's feelings of jealousy or greed or anger that can arise in our mind, and then if we act out of that, then it can harm ourselves and others. And so we watch that, and we try to channel whatever we do in our actions, physically, verbally, or mentally, in ways that are helpful and beneficial to others.
That's all. Ani tela chamjaro. Okay. Laso ani ta tring pe masi gawasho ta ngazawa lama jawa yibji no jawa mochi Dalai Lama. How many people know Dalai Lama? Can you raise hand? Okay. Okay. You don't. Okay. How many people know Tibetans? Okay. Good. Okay. The Holiness Dalai Lama, he always say to the earth, the young generation is the future. That Quran to the Maumba ke Jakab Sunza, Zambaling Sunza, Mazambochik Sunza. That the Revanang Yuris, Java Yvin, Jawarambochi. That Quran to Maumba America Sunza. Quran to Zambo Sunza Sina sea. Plant seed, right? Sunza Sawung that you Mazambo Song, Mayarab Song, and it Jawarambochi Namjo. Maumba, and it that is Junjita so, Marab Zambo chick, Marab Yabochik, Song la Charlie, Reva you, Songayori. The name the Tanani, Neatita, the Nichiran, Molam Sugar Insi, and it's Hama, and the Yaboy on the Reva, the Molam use.
Okay, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama often says when he gives advice to people, he says, I hope that I planted some seeds here for good people to grow and for good actions to grow here in this country. And so I would now make a prayer along those same lines.
다신 심진 담제 로추선 로와라 신제 랍도 소 주람든 로와라 신제 랍도 소로 란트바 세와라 신제 랍도 소로 출바 이시선 저와라 신제 랍도 소 파마 심진 담제 대당 딘저르 쟁인로 담제 다도 동바라쇼 산주선바 간다사라 요바 디다 공제 몰란드 바이쇼. Okay, that's all. Thank you, everyone. 부지치. Thank you.